The Joyful Noise Radio Hour.
Hello and welcome to the Joyful Noise Radio Hour. I am your host, Karl Hofstetter. This episode, we will be listening to brand new unreleased tracks from Helvetia, from the new band Missing Sons, featuring Christian from L1011, as well as new songs from the upcoming release by Lou Barlow, titled Reason to Live. The album drops on May 28th, and I will be speaking with Lou later in this episode. We'll be talking about everything from his long history with Dinosaur Jr. and Sebadoh and folk Implosion to his most recent solo work, which is sort of the culmination of a kind of residency that he did here at Joyful Noise called the Artist Enabler Club. But to kick things off, I would like to play for you a new track from Tropical Fuckstorm. The Australian band has a new album coming out this year called Deep States. This has not yet been announced. Top secret information heard here first. The track I'm going to play for you right now comes from that album. An earlier version of the song can be found on a 7-inch that we released a few months back, but this is the album version world premiere of the track Legal Ghost.
She said, come in, wipe your feet. I walked in off the street, into her room. It looked pretty bad. She made me read the report, and after all the contortions, I met a legal ghost. A legal ghost. A legal ghost. They went and burned his body, and then they burned his clothes. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter who you sleep with now, you'll always sleep alone. So it may as well be me, I got nowhere to be. I'll probably hang around. Yeah, just you, me, us two, and your legal ghost. Your legal ghost. For once them cops ain't calling for you, but you know that kid, she can't stay with you. It seems the only thing that you've got coming is just the spaces that are left by all the things that go, like your legal ghost. Your legal ghost. Doesn't really matter who you sleep with now, you're just a legal ghost. It doesn't really matter who you speak with now, you're just a legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter who you talk to now, you're just a legal ghost. And it doesn't really matter where you walk to now, you're just a legal ghost. A legal ghost. You're a legal ghost. Yeah, but don't the walls seem harder now? And ain't the corners just a little darker now? Now that your faith has failed you, leaving a paper trail leads to your legal ghost. Your legal ghost. Your legal ghost. Your legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter who you sleep with now, you're just a legal ghost. Yeah, it doesn't really matter who you speak with now, you're just a legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter who you talk to now, you're just a legal ghost. And it doesn't really matter where you walk to now, you're just a legal ghost. A legal ghost. You're a legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter who you sleep with now, you're just a legal ghost. And it doesn't really matter who you speak with now, you're just a legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter who you talk to now, you're just a legal ghost. And it doesn't really matter where you walk to now, you're just a legal ghost. It doesn't really matter if you hang around, you are a legal ghost. No, it doesn't really matter if you stay in town, you are a legal ghost. You know, I know that you know you are a legal ghost. Hey, you know, I know that you know you are a legal ghost. Yeah, a legal ghost. A legal ghost. A legal ghost. A legal ghost.
And you just heard a new track from Tropical Fuckstorm from their upcoming, as yet unannounced, new album. But I can secretly tell you that it is called Deep States, and it is arriving later this year. This band is absolutely incredible. They're one of the most wild, just fearless bands on the label. They just truly don't give a fuck, as you might be able to tell from their band name. Up next, I would like to play for you two new tracks from the new Helvetia album. The album's called Essential Aliens, and it comes out on June 25th. The long-running project from Jason Albertini, also of the band Duster and Built to Spill. We've been releasing Jason's records for a long time. I think about 10 years ago, we released his record Nothing and Rambling. That was the first that Joyful Noise got involved with him. So I would like to play for you the first two tracks on the new Helvetia album because they work together so well.
A hostage of freaks running up all the air. Cyber head kiss whenever you come to stay. 24 straight days of getting. He's not joking around. Cops never stay. No one's leaving the hill. Nights off the work. We're still sitting inside. Just waiting for steam. Catching up on the day. Middle of the brown colored lake, we saw their face. Reminded me of no one. Definitely will stay. Fallen crooks in this crowd. Everyone goes that way. Crooks go in the ground. Crooks go in the ground.
So, earlier this year, we started a new series here at the label called the Gray Area Cassette series. The Gray Area series focuses on the offshoot side projects from the Joyful Noise roster, and we are releasing 10 cassettes throughout the year, released both on cassette and digital, all of which are being released monthly and then collected in this fancy wooden cassette box set. The box set is sold out, but you can still get the individual cassettes if you missed out on the box. You should check it out because this is a really incredible series featuring 10 albums from the Joyful Noise extended family. This series features new projects from members of bands like Joan of Arc, Reptar, Swamp Dogg, Ohm, Helvetia, and L1011, who we are going to hear next. This month we are releasing the new band Missing Sons. Over this past pandemic year, Christian has been one of the most prolific artists on the roster, writing not only this album from Missing Sons, he also started another project called Arguing with Hurricanes, which will also be featured in the Gray Area series. And in addition, he apparently has 2 new L1011 albums written. So we've got a lot more to look forward to. But in the meantime, check out this brand new song. This is the opening track from the self-titled album from Missing Sons. Next, I'll be speaking with my hero, Lou Barlow. Like many people out there, I grew up listening to Lou Barlow's music in Dinosaur Jr., Sebadoh, Folk Implosion, and his solo records. I was a huge fan of his before he became involved at all with the record label. It's an honor to be releasing his brand new record called Reason to Live. The new album comes out on May 28th, and prior to our conversation, I will be playing you the first track from the album, which is yet to be released. Hope you enjoy that, and hope you enjoy our discussion.
Poison my king, denial my queen, ruled over me for years. Faded to fall away from my song, no longer mine but theirs. And you found again, surround me like you did back when. You blessed my wrist, reclaimed my gift. You're in my arms again. In my arms. In my arms again. In my arms. Back in my arms again. Surround me like you did back when. Oh, what is this outrageous gift? You're in my arms again. In my arms. In my arms again.
Thanks for calling in, dude.
No worries.
How you doing?
Okay. I was just trying to edit I started editing a Dinosaur Jr. video, and
Oh, yeah?
yeah.
Cool.
I was trying to sync. I got Final Cut Pro, and I tried Final Cut Pro for the first time this morning, and it was driving me absolutely bonkers. I'm like, it's like learning a whole new language, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
So, is the lead single from the new record going to be one of your songs?
No, it's Jay's.
Okay.
I'm the second single from the record, I guess.
Are you doing the video for Jay's song or for your song?
What's that?
Are you
for my song, because
Okay.
they said they were like, oh yeah, your song's gonna be the second single, and we'll do like a lyric video for it. And I was like, I'll just do a video. That's what I do now. Like, I'll make a goofy video for it. And so I didn't realize that it was like by doing that. I mean, I think because Dinosaur Jr. is such a more of a, I don't know, more of this established. They're like, well, what kind of video? What are you going to do?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to have like a meeting. I had to have my meeting with Jag people about it and kind of do my proposal. Sort of I mean, they were very cool about it. But, you know, it was just I was like, oh shit, yeah, I got to do my proposal, and I got to like.
Yeah.
And then
they're not as DIY straight to the people as your solo shit. And
no, I mean, and I guess I just had to have a meeting to do to sort of propose my video. So
Yeah, it's weird
that's
how
fine. All good.
yeah. It's cool that they let you do it.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, it's
Cool.
it's a big
Totally cool.
operation.
Yeah, and I don't think it wasn't really that big of a deal. I mean, they were just like, well, I just said I wanted to do a video, and they're like, fine, okay, that sounds good. So,
I just interacted with Jag about the Dinosaur album because I might mention we have we have a solo record from you scheduled, but you sort of forgot that you also had this Dinosaur Jr. record, or at least it seemed like that to us. Like we were kind of like, oh, like he totally forgot that he's releasing a Dinosaur Jr. record around the same time. So I had to talk to Jag and just make sure that our dates lined up. And
I think somehow I thought I was up being so on top of stuff, or because I've had a lot of plates in the air lately. You know, just it was done like almost a year ago. You know?
Wow. Did you record it with Justin again?
No, I mean Justin worked. He did some work on it. We have like 2 or 3 engineers we work with and who come in and out of Jay's place, and they're guys that we've known for quite a while. And at the end, this guy John Agnello comes in and mixes the whole thing, and he's been working with Jay since I think the Where You Been record.
Wow.
Which, you know, kind of one of the breakthrough records for Jay. And so they've been working.
Listen to that.
John,
that was one of my questions for you. Like, curious if you've ever spent any time with those middle period Dinosaur records. A lot of fans have like, you know, mixed feelings about those, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, you know, as a Dinosaur fan myself, I guess I don't know so much about those middle records. I mean, I research them when I need to learn songs, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's kind of like, I'm looking, I think when Jay gets more, you know, when he starts to delve more into those records for us to play, I'll probably start listening to them a little bit more.
Some of those records are really good. You know what? Like, I think it was kind of weird for me. I didn't initially realize that you were even in Dinosaur Jr. Thinking back to, like, I was a fan of yours and a fan of Dinosaur Jr. in that middle period, and I didn't realize that you were, you know, the original member. Because I was a child, you know. I was like,
no, it's a lot to keep. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to keep up with, you know.
I probably had a weird introduction to you. Most people probably first get introduced to your solo records or Sebadoh or Dinosaur Jr., right? But my introduction to you was the kids soundtrack, and then after that, I got into Folk Implosion because of that, and then I got Take a Look Inside, the Folk Implosion from my local record store.
Nice.
When I was probably 13 or maybe.
Good. That's
yeah, and it was formative for me, man. Like that record, it was like,
oh, that's cool.
I think it was the first like lo-fi record that I really connected with, you know, where it was like holy shit, like these guys are, you know, doing this record in their bedroom. They have the same halogen lamp that I do, you know.
Oh, cool. I'm yeah, that's great.
But and also that kids soundtrack, man. I don't think that gets talked about enough. I think that's one of the best soundtracks ever. That was also my introduction to Daniel Johnston and Slim.
Yeah. So
like you introduced me to
I didn't do that.
A lot of my favorite music on that.
Well, Harmony Korine and Harmony Korine did that. I mean, he
did he add the Dan Johnston and Slint?
He curated that soundtrack. You know, he invited me to do the sound to score the film.
You do like 90% of it, don't you?
Yeah. And he had one particular piece of mine that he wanted to use, and then he wanted me to score it, and he wanted it to be pretty lo-fi, and then I think we probably took it in a direction he wasn't really expecting. Like when we did like, you know, Natural One and started, you know, doing more sample based stuff. I think he wanted me to do like kind of a purely lo-fi kind of acoustic soundtrack for it. I think John Davis and I were working together. We were at sort of our collaboration was so intense and fruitful. And when I was asked to do the soundtrack, I thought I just had to invite John because he and I we just talked all the time and talked about music. And that's, I just, I mean, I just thought if he and I just sat and were able to, it was amazing because he and I were given free reign to just do whatever we wanted. And yeah, it was great. It was so much fun. But they added like Daniel and Slant. And
okay. Were you a fan of those bands at the time?
Of course. No, okay. Absolutely. They're absolutely enormous.
So it wasn't done without your authorization.
No. I mean, the kind of cool thing is, I think in a way, like Slint was, those guys were they were influenced by early lo-fi Sebadoh as well, almost in a similar way that, like, I think they had kind of embraced some of the really early Sebadoh and Centradoh stuff too. So it was cool. I mean, it was just, and Daniel was obviously, I found out about Daniel after I sort of was doing my own home recordings. Like Sonic Youth had actually introduced me to them. Steve Shelley had, because Dinosaur Jr. did a 2-week tour with a Sonic Youth probably in 1986, I think. It was our first tour, and they would just carry this huge boombox around with them and just be playing these cassettes all the time that they had picked up on the road. And
like, wait, hold on. They would do this like in the van on the way to the shows or something, or they do
they had this one of those huge, like, New York City boom boxes, and they were always playing music on it. If they were carrying it around with them everywhere, and we were kind of we were chasing them in our van, for 2 weeks, or actually in Jay's parents' station wagon. We were chasing them on tour for 2 weeks, and they were just the coolest. They'd get out, like, we'd get to the venue or whatever, and they'd be there, and Thurston would have the big boom box out on the sidewalk playing crazy music, really cool, like a lot of like experimental stuff, a lot of like, but it was all generally stuff that they had sort of acquired on the road, like that people had given them, like, so cool. I remember they had one tape was this, it was like, I'm like, what the hell is that? It was like this incredible noise, and they're like, oh, it's a band Pile of Cows. I'm like, Pile of Cows, where'd you get that? And they're like, I mean, I don't remember exactly where they got it, but it could have been like Virginia or something.
Right.
And then one night, like, it was this amazing starry night, just, it was beautiful out, and the boombox was just sitting on the sidewalk. I think maybe we had already played the show, but I heard, I'm a Baby in My Universe by Daniel Johnston coming out of this boombox, and I was like, what is that? I mean, I'm like, because I mean, it was so recognizable and familiar to me, because I had been taping in my, in my childhood bedroom, onto my parents', portable tape recorder, and I just recognized the textures and recognized but I was like, oh my God. And I mean, his songwriting was so, I mean, I was so blown away by, there's a handful of things that I can remember the first time hearing, and Daniel is definitely one of them. And I think I was sort of intimidated, because I thought, oh my God, this is like what I've been doing, with my life for the last 3 or 4 years, since like 1981 or 82, but his songwriting was, everyone knows this. I mean, everyone possibly watching this, and yourself, of course, understand that he was a very sophisticated songwriter, and to hear that kind of like that songwriting sophistication and in the context of these home recordings was just it was like it was a moment, I really I felt it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever get to meet Daniel?
I came close. I had a tour manager who was working with Sebadoh. I mean, the answer is no, but I came close because I had a tour manager who was from Austin, and she had been, she was very much a part of the Austin scene, sort of when Slacker, the movie, was created, and she went on to become like, she sold t-shirts for like Jesus Lizard and all this other stuff. But we were one of the final Sebadoh tours that we were doing with her in like 1997 or 98. She was like, we're going to go to Texas and we're going to go to my dad's house and you're going to shoot a machine gun. And then we're going to, and then we're going to meet Daniel Johnston. And I was like, oh, and unfortunately, we didn't end up getting to meet Daniel, but, and I didn't get to shoot a machine gun, but I do. And I don't wish I had met Daniel because I do think he was so clearly troubled, and I don't, I think that would be difficult. So
yeah, totally. I never got to meet him, but it was a little odd. Like we were in the middle of like the planning process of reissuing his record with Jad Fair. It's spooky.
That's really good stuff. That stuff is really good, and that was very
so like we were in the middle of doing that when he died. I never got to meet him, but like we decided with that release to delay it so it didn't seem like opportunistic or whatever to profit from his death, and we also wanted to now include extended liner notes from Kramer and Jeff, the filmmaker who did the documentary on him and stuff. It was weird timing for us to be working with him right then, but he's definitely like it. His story is one that kind of gives me hope about the music industry, because like I'm surprised how revered he is, honestly. He's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's like he sounds like he's from a different planet, and I'm just surprised that the mainstream has embraced it, to an extent.
Yeah, I am and I'm not. I think because the songs are really good.
Yeah.
Like they actually are like extraordinarily good.
Yeah.
And they actually go way beyond being outsider. That's the thing about his stuff. It's like even his early cassettes, when because Steve Shelley had gave me like a compilation. He made me like a half an hour cassette tape of like his idea of Daniel's greatest hits. And he actually ended up like almost putting out Hi, How Are You to a larger audience. But he actually backed out of it at the last minute because he felt he didn't want to exploit him. And he felt because he brought Daniel to New York. It's all in the movie, but it's like he had brought Daniel to New York, Sonic Youth had.
Yeah.
And it was such an intense thing for them. And I think Steve really felt conflicted. He was like, I don't know how I feel about bringing this guy to a larger audience,
Did he feel like it was like taking advantage of somebody who wasn't mentally capable or something?
I think also Daniel had also tried to attack him. So that probably didn't really help it along for him. And I think he did. He bowed out. He bowed out pretty quickly, but Gerard and Homestead picked up on that. But I guess to me, I'm not surprised because the stuff that is good is like extraordinary. It's not. There's so much stuff that's like that we can consider sort of outsider, and and of course now that everything is out there pretty much, and there is. I'm a great believer in just like how truly unbelievably limitless the world is for like just incredible music that you've never heard. It's out there. But I do think that like his songwriting was actually on par with Lennon and McCartney and the greats, Lieber and Stoller, I think he was actually one of the great songwriters in American music history. So I guess for me, if you do consider it just in terms of like that he was just very, very troubled, there's that part of it. I think the fact is he's also he's part of this new, like what indie rock what indie rock gave to the world. It was the beginning of like where stuff wasn't regional anymore, where it was basically very hard to keep a secret anymore, because there was a lot of secrets kept, especially in the music world, before the 1980s, but as the circle started growing bigger and people were touring a lot and fanzines and then into the internet, it's like, it is hard for somebody who is truly that talented to go on totally unrecognized, and so to me it's not it. And the other fact is that there were people working with Daniel who were making sure
Yeah,
that Daniel was seen and heard.
advocates around him, like
Yeah,
Steve Shelley and
Steve Shelley. I mean,
Kramer.
exactly. Sonic Youth were like evangelical about that when they discovered him. I mean, and already the people within Austin were, and then when Sonic Youth got a hold of it, I mean, and Sonic Youth really had people's ear,
Yeah.
on a national level, and so then it was just basically this handing off, and because Sonic Youth, like, it was almost that post-hardcore thing of like people were very, the communication and the underground, the American underground, as it was and is, I assume, as much as I know of it now, but it's a very fertile and very caring environment. It's where people do want other people to hear great music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's still true.
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive it's true. But
So I'm curious, like, you've had such a long career, because you started so early, like you've experienced the music industry through like so many different developmental periods of the industry, because you started, when you were whatever, 17. Was it earlier?
I guess so.
Okay.
I mean, I would have been 16 when I was my first band with Jay. Would be 16.
So that's going through like the whole hardcore, thing, and then you lived through the alternative rock Nirvana, mainstream craze thing, and then the digital, Napster, and then iTunes, and now streaming. I guess I'm just curious, from your perspective, is there a good era? like what's the best era of the music industry? Is it like good now because it's so free and open, and anyone from any country can stream any music from Spotify? Or do you think it was better when it was a little more like tough to get music because people cared about it more?
I like now,
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the 2000s quite a bit, because I thought that people were so musically, like younger people were so musically open-minded in a way that I didn't feel people were open-minded in the 90s. The 80s, I think the 80s are kind of cool, because when you look back on it, you realize that the 80s were an incredibly fertile period for music. And so many types of music really took hold at that point, and music that like rap and indie rock, and speed metal and heavy music, experimental music, like all of these things kind of took hold in the 80s. And then on top of like the 80s were also like a really kind of an amazing time for pop music. It was pretty like kind of anarchy for pop music. There was just, as someone who experienced 80s pop radio, especially late 70s, early 80s pop radio, was like kind of all over the place. It was amazing.
Do you think the 80s was so good because of struggle? Like, I don't know. I have this sort of theory that like most of the great musical sort of moments, that most of the great like innovations in music, like jazz and blues and hip hop and stuff, like all came out of this intense struggle, and it's hard to write good music if you're just fucking happy all day. Like it's, what I mean? Like you need a little bit of torture in there. And do you think like the 80s, like Reagan, like the fucking, institutionalized racism that was happening, like all that shit sort of fed the art?
I don't know. Maybe. I think, I don't know. I mean, there's theories behind it. There's a pretty good book called Rip It Up and Start Again, I think it's called, by Simon Reynolds.
I haven't read that.
Yeah, it's cool because I mean, I'm really into, I think for the 80s stuff, like I'm really into like the evolution of like punk, punk rock, UK punk rock, and then it immediately evolving into like this DIY scene,
Mhm.
and how that evolved. I don't know. And
What were you
how
guys listening to at the time in those early days? Like what like contemporary bands were you super into?
I mean, I mean, it's like if you start off, I mean, what was I thinking of? Well, I guess the other day I'm working on this St. Patrick's Day special, for uh just because that's what I'm doing. Whatever, just
Yeah.
to keep myself occupied and do something
Because we're in the
fun.
middle of a fucking pandemic. And
Yeah, and keep my little girl dancing, and my wife and I just saying, talking to each other, just
yeah,
the way
it's
that we
good to have something to work
generally
on.
talk, the way we talk all the time. And but I was thinking about U2, because
Mhm.
I loved the first U2 record. I absolutely loved it. And I don't think people, I mean, maybe people do realize this, but they came out at the same time. They came out right on the heels of like post-punk, like PIL, Joy Division. They
Mhm.
were contemporaries with New Order. Like for me,
Mhm.
when I discovered like the first U2 record, it was it was the same time that I bought like, Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division as a set, import 7-inch. This was the same period. This was like, it was that like kind of that period of like there was amazing synth pop, like cold wave, whatever people want to call it. Like that was also happening concurrently with U2. And U2, like their first single. I mean, I live in an area where there was like, I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, there was probably a dozen college radio stations
Wow.
that were like playing, and which I could pick up left of the dial. Like
That people were actually listening to.
I was listening to it. I don't know how many other people were listening to it. There's a radio station, WAMH in Amherst. There were kids that were actually part of the original Discord scene. They were bringing the 7-inches from Washington, D.C. to their dorm rooms or whatever in Amherst College and playing them on the radio stations. I heard the very first Discord release
Wow.
on the radio. And I heard it and I wrote down the name. I was like, I heard Teen Idols, the very first Discord record. And then I went to the back pages of Rolling Stone, Trouser Press, which was and the New York Rocker, until I found a way to mail order that record.
Wow.
And that's how I got involved, because I mail ordered these records because I heard them on the radio. Like I heard Joy Division on the radio.
Mhm.
I heard the very first U2 single before they put out an album on the radio. And I have like little notes. I can find them now where I wrote down like U2 and I spelled it YOUTOO. I was like, what is this? Like, cause I just heard.
Yeah, because you didn't see it written down.
I didn't see it written down. They were just saying it. And then the first band on Discord was called Teen Idols, which is spelled IDLES. I wrote it down as Teen IDOLS. I was like,
Mhm.
I had to find, and then I then took it upon myself to like try to find these records. And thank God they were like super cheap. You could send $5 to Discord Records and get that record in the mail. And and I was lucky, because I mean, I had it, I got that was when I had my paper route, and and I stopped using my paper route money to buy, Levi's, so I didn't get fucking bullied at school, and started buying records,
That's cool.
So
have you ever crossed paths with the Discord people?
Yeah, I've met Ian. He's really nice, like really, really great, really, really nice person. Fugazi had asked Sebadoh to open for them.
Oh yeah?
Like in 90, 91.
Whoa, that's awesome. That would be a great tour.
We went out, it was Jason and we opened up acoustically for Fugazi through the South. It was like
maybe not such a good
but Ian had such an amazing control of his audience. That was when Fugazi would be like, don't you dare slam at this show. don't, they were such in control of their audience that their audience was incredibly kind to us, and we played acoustically. We sat down and played acoustic before Fugazi. So, and Ian and Guy and the rest of those guys were all really nice and like really. And then when I've seen Ian since then, I mean, he's really, really nice and a supporter, actually, just a very, very, yeah,
Yeah.
into music, really into music.
Clearly. Yeah, I've never met him or anything. I've got no connection to Ian or Discord, but I'm just a big fan. And it's nice from a label perspective to have like such a good template to follow,
Oh yeah.
Like their approach is just so it follows the values that we try to embody too, So anyway,
Yeah.
let's talk about your Artist Enabler Club. So you did this experiment with us for 18 months, right? 18 months, year and a half. Yeah, this is the first time we did it, and I was very glad that you were on board to be the kind of guinea pig for it. It seems like it worked out pretty well. Yeah, I think, and just so anyone who's listening knows, we are on the heels of releasing a proper full-length record from Lou that is sort of, I guess you'd say, like, would you call it like a record that was compiled from a lot of this material?
Oh yes, it was literally.
Like, no, I don't want to call it, like, I want to describe it as a compilation. Is it like it's a proper new record? But it's
a compilation. It's a compilation of the tracks that I did for the Artist Enabler. Right. But weirdly, as it's a compilation, it's actually probably the closest thing to a true album that I've ever done, because it's of its time. Of that 18 months that I did it, those recordings are from 18 months. I mean, and they were so. And I think the other thing that's cool about it is that all of the recordings were done with an immediacy to them to finish. To keep up with the deadlines, of the club. Like I had to keep up with the deadline. So when I had to finish stuff much quicker than I would have otherwise. Because a lot of times I'll be like, I think I'm ready to put out a record, but I'll have sat on something long enough for, but this was just like immediacy. And then also like, there was a concept behind it from the beginning, I think. And the fact that I worked on it with Adam Harding, who's such a great friend of mine, and then also he's been, a great supporter of mine since he was a kid, and we've known each other since he was a kid, and he's a person that
this couldn't have happened without Adam. Like he was such a good partner for you.
No, he's not. I mean, I do actually hesitate to use the word brother because people overuse it. It's like, hey, brother, I do think it's overused, but Adam and I are like, I don't know. He became like he became my brother, because he literally lived with me, and he and I have been through a lot together and a lot of periods of our lives together, and but it was always threaded together with music and and him doing, when he and I started collaborating like visually on videos and stuff too, and then and he's he cares. Part of this about me. I care about him. We're just we kind of I've had a very kind of familial relationship with Adam for quite a while. So, and that's important to me, because I have to feel comfortable doing anything. So, and he he and I are pretty comfortable around each other. So
do you think this platform itself, like the Artist Enabler Club platform, do you think that itself sort of helped to create this music? Do you think this music wouldn't otherwise exist without it, or do you think you would like eventually written these kind of songs?
I don't know. I think just the fact that I had to do stuff, and
like the deadline was a
I think it's
artistic
deadlines.
spark.
It's all about deadlines.
Creator.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with deadlines. I mean, especially because now I think, I mean, it's similar to, I mean, but it's very similar to the way things felt when I was young. You know, when I started to first really produce things, you know, starting in 18, like, you know, I mean, even when I was a kid, like, in, you know, 1982, 83, and I had such an immediacy because it just seems like, you know, time just feels like it's just whizzing by you, and like you know, oh my God, it's been 2 weeks since I wrote a song. You know, you feel like
Right.
these things become these yawning chasms of time.
Yeah.
You know, but as you get older, you're more like, you know, what 2 years, what's 3 years, you know, and I gotta wait till I'm ready and all this other stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so everything becomes sort of extended. And now, especially with like the way that things are recorded, you know, you have these digital, like, ways of recording digitally can really extend the process, because
Right.
you can really become involved in, like, you know, quote unquote perfecting something
Yeah.
before it's done. And that can really, like, I think in some ways that's wonderful, and then other ways it's kind of like it does uh kind of like eliminate that kind of sense of immediacy.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it also, I think on the whole, like, people are worse at recording, like, or the recordings themselves have less heart in them if they don't, if the artist isn't feeling like this is going to tape, you know, like this is the take, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you have the understanding that you can always just erase it and redo it, you know, then it's harder to get that special moment on a record, you know?
that's probably true. I mean, I think it is true, actually. And I mean, there also, I mean, I think, you know, one of the reasons I love the, you know, the aughts, you know, 2000s with music, I mean, there was a real return to immediacy. I mean, the most obvious example of that would be the White Stripes, you know, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jack Jack White's whole attitude, you know. But he was simply like, there was a whole movement of people behind him and that preceded him, and that. But that's one sort of extreme to it I'm not totally comfortable with that either. It's like one take only, live to vinyl.
Right.
I'm
A
like, I
little too
don't,
much.
because I mean, I think what the Enabler series did for me was it really brought me back to like my 4-track period, which was like, you know, which was like, you know, Folk Implosion. Like, I consider like the best thing I did on 4-track, like, you know, Take a Look Inside,
Yeah.
the stuff that I did with John Davis, the Palm. I mean, the early, I mean, actually onto the Kid soundtrack as well. There's a lot of 4-track stuff on the Kid soundtrack, but you know, my early Sebadoh stuff that I did, and the early Sebadoh 3, Freedman, Weed Forest, and I mean, those are all like, those were records that I crafted, you know, but like, they're not they're all very crafted. My 4-track recordings were crafted, you know, for but also there was a limit to how far you could go. And I think that by doing the artist enabler thing, it set limits. And I also work in a very limited, the way that I do work on digital stuff is like limited. Like, I work on the most basic Pro Tools. I have like no effects, no plugins. I have no, I mean, I work in a very, and that's all I had when I started.
Intentionally limited.
I don't know how intentional it is. It's because it's actually, it's very similar to the 4-track thing, because it really does come down to, you know, there was a big debate early on when my lo-fi stuff was happening, you know, and people were, you know, it at least was sort of, it was being kind of embraced by, you know, fanzines and stuff, and people were coined the term lo-fi, and it was, you know, people are like, are you doing this because of the limitation, or are you doing this because you want it to sound this way? You know, it's like, is that what I mean? It's like, and it's a real combination of both. It's like, I don't really, I don't have, I actually have, I'm limited in the way that I record, because that's all I've got. I mean, I really don't have the resources, to be blunt. I mean, because you know, I have a family. I have like a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, I would say that's a blessing in disguise, because
I think the artist enabler thing was pretty awesome, because I think I had felt before that I was like, I can't do this because I don't have this, and I can't do this. I was like, you know what? I was like, fuck it. I got to make, Karl needs 4 new songs this month, and I'm going to make it. I'm doing it, and I was like, I'm going to do 4 new songs. I'm going to do at least 1 new installment every quarter for this thing. I'm going to do a bunch of new songs every quarter, and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, so what if I don't have the plugins on my Pro Tools? So what if my Pro Tools only has 16 tracks on it? So what if what if I don't have this mic? So what if I don't? It's like, and then, and I actually went right back. I pulled out my cassette stuff. I used cassettes again. I was like, I'm going directly to what I know will sound good to me with the resources that I have. And that was amazing, man. So, thank you for that. That definitely.
Dude, thank you. It worked out so well. Like, there aren't a lot of artists that I think this would work for. And it just seemed to be a really good fit for both Joyful Noise and Lou Barlow. And it resulted in this fucking incredible record, Reason to Live.
Yeah, there it is.
It's coming out May 28th. So let's play a song. You said you would like to play the song Cold One. Is there anything you want to say about that?
I really like the way this song sounds. I don't know. There's
you
a lot.
How you recorded it?
No, I don't, and I wish I did. There's so many things on this record. Like, I did them so off the cuff, and I would just go in with this single-minded, like, I'm gonna do this, and with that sense of urgency. And I think I did it with 3 other songs. I think I generally try to do these 4-song bursts. This idea was, I think for this, I did the basic guitars and everything on cassette, where I recorded them digitally and then blew them onto a cassette and then blew them back from the cassette onto Pro Tools. So it's like a real analog digital combination. A lot of the stuff on the record is like that. But it was like one of those things that was like single-minded, like I got to get, because I'm doing these really punishing, like, 12, it's not a 12-string, but it's a 4-string tuning that I play, and it's really hard. Like, the way that I play guitar has so much attack to it that it's very hard to digitally capture that attack without it being either over compressed or just being assaultive. So this
tape just handles it better like that.
It absolutely handles it. Like, tape is so much more forgiving for the way that I approach my acoustic instruments. Anyway, so I blew it onto cassette and then back onto digital, and then I do like the way that digital captures vocals quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So although I did a lot of background vocals that were on cassette as well. So I did this like bouncing thing where I do like a whole digital take of the song, put it onto cassette, and then take that and then put it back onto digital, and then add the elements that I feel like digital is the best with, which can be my voice.
That's a really cool, way to have the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think a lot of people are after that, and I like the atmosphere of this recording quite a bit.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's play it here. This is Cold One from Reason to Live.
Oh
Dude, I can totally hear the distinction between the the tape sounds and the digital sounds. Now that you've told me that.
Right.
I couldn't pinpoint what sounded so good about it before. That's really cool, man. I think that, yeah, I've been a fan of yours for, ages. And I really do think this is one of your best works. This record is really,
Oh, thanks, Carl.
man. That's something special.
I hope so. I mean, I feel good about it. So, but I like making records. So I pretty much have to put myself in the state. Anytime that I finish a record, I'm like, this is really good. I think I've done a really good thing. You know what I mean? It's just like it's part of it's just part of the. I hope I just can keep making records for
Yeah.
forever.
Well, we'll keep putting them out as long as you keep making them. I had a random thought today. So the previous artist that I talked to for this podcast was Dale Crover, and you and Dale are friends. I was curious, like, where that friendship started, because I have a funny story surrounding a Folk Implosion Melvins tour.
Oh, really?
Well,
Okay.
when I was a freshman in high school, I was 14, I think. My girlfriend was 16, so she had a car, and
Nice.
I was a huge fan of Melvins and Folk Implosion, and I saw that both of you guys were playing together at the Metro in Chicago, and I was like, that is fucking crazy. Like, I never thought these two bands would ever like be affiliated with one another, let alone be playing the same stage. And I bought tickets, and then my parents wouldn't let me go because it was a school night. And and I remember this really distinctly. I remember my mom saying, like, "Oh, it'll happen again, sweetie. Don't worry, it'll happen again." And I was like, "No, it won't. Like, it really, really won't." This is a once in a lifetime thing. And so, yeah, I think that disappointment from having to not see that show maybe is like a weird, like, subliminal driving force behind, like, me needing to now, like, work with like you and Dale.
Right. That's true, because I mean, you're really passionate about the Melvins as well. I mean, you're like,
Yeah, fucking love the Melvins.
mm.
What was your first interaction with them? Because that still seems like a weird fit to me, like Folk Implosion
I
and
think,
Melvins.
well, when I moved to LA, I mean, I'd been in LA for a while, and Sebadoh, I moved there in 97, and then by 2000, like everything got fucked up. Like John Davis quit the Folk Implosion.
Right.
Sebadoh we did this record called the Sebadoh, and although I really liked the lineup of the band, it was like myself, Jason, and this guy Russ Pollard. The record did poorly, and we ended up just like we did like one last tour, and like the shows were just like nobody was there. I mean, it was just like
I was also kind of at a transitional moment in the industry.
Oh,
right?
for sure. I mean, for sure it was. There was all kinds of reasons for this to happen, but it was like when that Sebadoh tour was done, it's like, like, what the hell, on the heels of that, like I had one more record to do. I had one more record in my contract with Interscope Records, like Folk Implosion had signed with Interscope Records, which were a huge label. And actually, when the record industry, like you said, there was a change at that point, and Interscope actually became the biggest record label in the world at that point. They took everything.
That was what's his name?
It's Jimmy Iovine, yeah.
Jimmy
Iovine had signed the Folk Implosion. I mean, it was my big moment.
Wait, he did? Like,
yeah,
he's the one that actually
Tom Wally signed it. Well, Tom Wally, his buddy, signed us, but we, we met Jimmy and all that stuff, and we did that whole thing. We did and it was, I got
weird. Like, I mean, just watching from the outside, like his whole thing, it seemed like he was so inspired early on, and then just became money focused, and therefore released terrible shit later on.
I don't even want to. He's just a whole thing. I mean, he's like, I mean, yeah,
I'm just saying, like,
they're
Gwen
into world. They're into
Stefani,
world domination. They are about world domination. That's just
right.
And
that,
you know,
I guess that's yeah. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying is like it felt like it was artistically focused at the beginning, and then it.
Well, they literally they subsumed the entire music, and like every label became their label. I mean, every label was taken. Almost every label, other than like I think RCA, and there was a few exceptions, but like other than that, like Interscope literally inhaled the entire music industry circa 1999. So anyway, like I did have one more record left to record for Interscope, so I had to form a band and I was like, well, I had an advance waiting for me to do a folk Implosion record, but the folk Implosion was gone. I mean, John Davis leaving the folk Implosion meant there was no folk Implosion. But I had to basically make that deal with the devil and go like, well, I guess I'm going to keep the name together anyway. I'm going to pursue this and see if I can make another folk Implosion record.
You did it in a clever way, though.
Well,
with new folk Implosion.
Well, we got dropped by Interscope. So anyway, I formed a band, and I formed it with Russ Pollard from Sebadoh, and he had become friends with this guy named Ahmad Wasif, who was in a band called Lowercase that toured with Sebadoh pretty extensively. Those two hooked up on a Sebadoh tour, and then they were living in San Francisco together. And then I convinced them to move from San Francisco to Los Angeles to be my backing band. And they were all part of this big scene in LA called the Jabberjaw. There was this band, there's this club called the Jabberjaw that ended up and that scene kind of ended up becoming associated with a club called The Smell. Long story short, through that whole scene, I mean, and the other thing is Ahmad actually went to high school with Maureen Crover, this woman Maureen who ended up marrying Dale. Okay, so
wow.
And Ahmad as a kid was a total Melvins fanatic, and even when he was very young, like when he he would go to these Melvin shows and just worship them. And he actually drank the story. His really funny story is that the Melvins had played a show, and Ahmad said to Dale, like, I will drink the sweat from your tidy white, because Dale would drum with just underwear on. So Dale took off his underwear, and Ahmad literally squeezed Dale's underwear and drank his ball sweat. So devoted was he, as many of us, and as many of us would understand that the Melvins, I mean, they are the true original, they were the true original post-hardcore, pre-grunge, grunge, everything experimental. Like they're
post everything. Yeah.
They began they're the only band that actually has been around longer than Dinosaur Jr. And the band, and it closely mirrors, my experience. I mean, I've never met people that so closely are so parallel to what my own experience in music. And so anyway, through Ahmad Wasif, when he joined my band and Ahmad and I got to be friends, pretty soon they were like, oh, well, we're going to go to Dale's house. And I'm like, Dale's house? And I was like, Dale Crover's house. Dale Crover. I'm like, oh God, so I'm like, I'm so intimidated. I mean, I was so intimidated by the Melvins and by the specter of the Melvins that I was like, oh man, but we ended up starting to go to Dale's house and seeing Dale more often. And pretty soon it was just like, I'm like, holy crap, like Dale's a really nice guy. And then because the Melvins they just love they love making connections in in music. They love connecting the dots with the underground. They love, like they did the record with Jello Biafra. They'll do the records with the Buttle. They want to connect dots. They care about this big family tree of underground music that sort of developed in the wake of hardcore. They love it. They love making those connections.
Or at least they see the value in cross-pollinating.
They love it, and so I think that they had kind of wanted to make, they had at some point had kind of wanted to make a Sebadoh connection. because they also have a really, like I do in a way, they have a really good sense of the perverse, and they have a good sense of like, and they really aren't as like, as much as they present themselves as being this sort of single-minded entity, that they're incredibly open-minded. And so basically, so like Ahmad and Russell Pollard, from Sebadoh, had been hanging out with Dale, and somehow it popped up that like maybe the Folk Implosion, because we were forming this band to be the Folk Implosion in the wake of John leaving, and to fulfill this contract with Interscope Records, we had become a band. So we went on tour with the Melvins.
Wow.
And we were pretty quickly dropped from Interscope, but we had written a bunch of songs. So we then were signed to another short-lived label and put out the new Folk Implosion record. But in the course of that, and then Dale ended up like having his kids, his two kids are like almost exactly the same age as my two oldest, my now 16-year-old and my 11-year-old. I don't know how this happened, but they ended up going to the same preschool, the same daycare. They had the same daycare. So my little girl was with Dale's little girl in daycare.
That's cool.
And then we just started hanging out, just like family hang. We started doing family hangs. And then I eventually realized that I could ask Dale to play drums.
Yeah.
Like I had a dream one night. I had this amazing dream one night. I was trying to put together demos for Dinosaur Jr. record, and I had this crazy dream that Dale, that I asked Dale to help me do demos for Dinosaur Jr. And my thought was like, well, if I have Dale Crover do my demos, then Murph and Jay are bound to listen to what I want.
That's such really a mischievous plan, dude.
Yeah, I was like this. I can I was like, and then yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate I had to move from LA because my friendship with Dale and beginning to collaborate with him musically was definitely something that it was really hard to leave behind.
Yeah. Well, dude,
we
can make that happen again. Like that. There's no reason that distance has to like.
Yeah, there is. Well, distance is everything, man.
Distance complicates things, but it doesn't make it impossible.
No, but I would love. I think ultimately, the last thing that I did, it was Ahmad Wasif, who was in the new Folk Implosion, and Dale and myself. We started to work together, and I'm like, that was actually one of my things where I was like, oh my God, like if I could really embrace this, I could make some of my favorite music this way. I knew it, I was like, I had Dale is such a natural, and Ahmad's wonderful. So I thought, that would have been a cool project.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Is that me or you? Are you getting texts?
That was me. My daughter just texted me.
I had sort of the same experience with Dale where like I was super, intimidated by him just from growing up listening to him and seeing him play live, and just, Melvins can be pretty fucking menacing, like and I was just terrified of him. It's weird now to sort of look back on that and be like, holy shit, like he's actually a really nice guy and we're actually good friends. Like, it's fucked up, but it took a while to get there.
Yeah, it takes me a long time.
It took me a while to get there with you, because I mean, I think you were actually my first experience with that, with like working with one of my heroes. I was trying to remember the first time like we actually met the other day.
Oh, we did that. You wanted to do the.
So it was the Dinosaur Jr. like cassette trilogy thing, right?
Yeah, that was like 2005. And that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And here's how I remember it. So we were doing that, and I asked you if we could do like 100 cassettes of Weed Forest, and to include like randomly, just as like a lottery freebie thing with orders, because was it You're Living All Over Me that came with that record originally or something?
Yes,
there was some reason that
it seems like, although that's apparently, I didn't realize that was sort of a controversial memory of mine, because Jay's like, I don't think that happened. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it happened.
Yeah.
But I sent out maybe 50 cassettes to these stores in Boston who gave it out with "You're Living All Over Me." But there was like two, maybe one or two record stores in Boston that did that. Anyway,
cool. Well, so like I come up with this idea, written you about it, and you were into it, and then I let Dinosaur Jr. management know, and to my surprise, and shows my ignorance of the whole, this industry at the time. They were like, actually, we would rather not have the Weed Forest and Cassette be a part of this. And so I had one of my first interactions with you was having to like go back to you and be like, sorry, man, like I shouldn't have promised this. The management says no. And I remember your response was something like, oh, I'll just threaten to quit the band. I often do that to just get what I want. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I cannot be responsible for Dinosaur Jr. breaking up, like.
I had to assert myself.
Yeah,
but it worked. It came out.
It did.
That's
all
cool
you had to
too,
do was
that
threaten
cassette,
to quit the band to get these
cassette
100
too is
cassettes
like,
made.
It's not. It's actually that edition of the cassette is the original. Is the original edition because I
remember you sent us like scans of the original J card and stuff, and then we reformatted and reprinted those scans.
Yeah, because I had ended up even by the time that. Yeah, because I had changed Weed Forest and sort of became a more of like an expanded edition shortly after You're Living All Over Me, and then by the time it made it to vinyl, it was totally different, or not different, but it had still more songs on it. So the original cassette was what you released. But I have to go pretty soon because I gotta go pick up my little girl from preschool.
Cool. Yeah, man. I think we've talked through a lot of good stuff. So let's just end with this last track from the new Lou Barlow record, which is called A Reason to Live. That's the name of the record.
Yep.
The name of the track is Act of Faith, and it's the last song on the album, and it'll be the last song for this radio special. Anything you want to say about this song, Lou?
No, I just thought I like this one. It sounded good. I had to re-record this one. The version that's on the Artist Enabler is different than the album version. I had to re-record it because I couldn't find I lost the session. So I had to, and I wanted to remix it. So I actually ended up re-recording it, which was kind of daunting because I really liked the original feel of it. And then but I re-recorded it at home, like during the pandemic, I guess, actually.
Yeah. Did you do digital and tape hybrid with this?
I didn't. No, I didn't do that. I didn't, because the tape machines I was using stopped working. That's the problem. Like people are like, just do it on cassette. I'm like, if you can find me a cassette player that works. I have so many dead cassette players now. I destroyed. There was two that I used for this record that both ended up not working anymore by the time at the end. Mm-hmm. And then I have four tracks that don't work. I can't find functional cassette players. It's just not that easy.
Yeah, we gotta buy you like a crate of them, like on.
Yeah, I want a working Tascam Porta 1. That would be my. I have 4 dead ones, and I would really like one that actually worked.
All right.
Which I do not have, and
somebody who's listening is gonna have to buy this for Lou and send it to you. Email us if you want to buy this for Lou, and I'll.
I'll give you. You can get whatever. I'll give you whatever you want. You want whatever records you want, and I'll give them to you. You want a signed Dinosaur Jr. poster? I'll do that. You want some Dinosaur Jr. sneakers? I'll give you that. Dinosaur Jr. skis. I got a Dinosaur Jr. turntable that I will trade for a functional Tascam Porta 1. I don't actually. It doesn't even have to be a Porta 1. It can be any Tascam or Fostex functional working 4-track cassette player. I will trade you that. Absolutely.
All right.
Please contact Karl. Get this. I will absolutely do that. I got Nike sneakers. I've got I've got some Converse Dinosaur Jr. sneakers. I got a Dinosaur Jr. turntable. I will
There's
trade
been
you
more than
any of
one
the-
Dinosaur Jr. sneaker.
Yes, dude. Yes. Swag Masters.
Merchandising. Yeah.
Swagasaur Jr.
Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Man, I appreciate you taking the time, Lou. Everybody listening, check out the new record, Reason to Live. Check out the new Dinosaur Jr. record also. What's that one called? I haven't heard it yet. So I don't know.
What is it called? Oh. It's like Shoot It Into Space. It's like a really funny song, funny title. It's like that's not Shoot It Into Space. It's something like that. It's like it's something about space, something about getting rid of something in space. I don't know. But yeah,
I think it's really funny how little you pay attention to the happenings of Dinosaur Jr. It's great.
That's not true. I pay attention to what matters with Dinosaur Jr., which is my relationship to my musical brothers. That's what I'm concerned with.
Gotcha.
Particulars are all taken care of. You know?
Well, thanks again, Lou.
No worries.
Here's Active Faith. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Hey, bud.
Bye.
Act of faith, think of all the things we do every day, cradled in an ancient tune. We're on the highway, headed for the box called home, where we lie, maybe die alone. Never be alone. All together, lost in a familiar way, torn apart, scattered in the same display. There's a lesson, careful of the one you learn, where you're born and when the foundation burns. Things you want to save while everything must change. Dead men can't hold you or understand your truth. I can. It's never gonna be explained, but how we try and we'll try again. The things you want to say while everything must change. Dead men can't hold you or understand your truth. The things you want to say while everything must change. Dead men can't hold you or understand your truth. I can.
Thanks for listening to the Joyful Noise Radio Hour.